Finally, the wait is over. Now we get to the reviews of the most recent Doctor Who series. This time, the Doctor is a woman played by Jodie Whittaker. I don't really know her work, but from what I've seen so far, it's actually not bad. I think this Doctor is actually a callback to Rose and the Ninth Doctor for two very important reasons. Number one, the Doctor is a blonde woman. Number two, she has a northern accent, because lots of planets have a north. At least, that's my interpretation. She's been all kinds of guys. Now she's sort of calling back to her first post-Time War team-up and breaking new ground. Whether or not the fans consider her too woke, this fan doesn't care, because honestly, the Doctor will always be the Doctor, whether you like her or not. So, when we last left the Doctor, she was falling out of her TARDIS as it was exploding and dematerializing. Neither of which are good. We start the first episode of the new season, new series, new era, with a guy on YouTube talking about how he's met an amazing woman and how he is 19 and still doesn't know how to ride a bike. Big deal. I'm 38, and while I know the fundamentals, you'll never catch me on one of those death machines. Unless it has 3 wheels and space for cargo. Anywho. He is still currently learning, or trying to learn, with the encouragement of his grandma, Grace. Not that Grace, a different Grace. And his step-grandpa, Graham. Quick side note. The guy, Ryan, and his grandma are black, and Graham is white. And while Ryan doesn't hate Graham, they sort of grate on each other, at least Graham grates on Ryan because he's so nice, and Graham isn't exactly hospitable, even though the happy couple were married years ago, back when Graham just barely survived cancer and Grace was nursing him back to health. Yeah, she was a nurse, so it's a sort of a Florence Nightingale thing. But Ryan's not a fan. He also decides to quit riding a bike, or trying to learn to ride a bike, and literally throws his bike off a cliff. Of course, when he goes to retrieve it out of a tree, he finds an alien-looking onion, the size of a large wicker basket, and bright blue, and extremely cold to the touch. Meanwhile, Grandma and Step-Grandpa are on a train back to their home when two things happen. Number one, what can only be described as a black electric spaghetti monster breaks through the train's engine window and disables the whole thing, later seemingly scanning the people on board, which at this point include the happy couple and some schlub. Luckily, before it can do anything really nasty, the doctor literally drops in and manages to fend off the creature with an electrical cable, but that's temporary. We also get to meet a young policewoman in training named Yaz, who is from Pakistan and was raised Muslim. But she doesn't have a headscarf. She does wear a police officer's hat well, though. Anyway, she wants to do more than just break up a couple of Karens over parking matters. She wants to be a real proper cop. Nobody suggests that she emigrate to the U.S. and become an LAPD officer, because that'd be tantamount to suicide. Seriously. LAPD is, well, they've had a bad rap. Anyway, while Yas tries to take control of the situation, the doctor, even though she's still suffering from memory lapse due to regeneration, she does take control of the situation. Tries to figure out what's going on. The schlub leaves because he's from Sheffield and they don't have aliens in Sheffield, after the doctor declares this is clearly an alien event. Yeah, it's funny. The aliens usually stick to London and Cardiff, but we never hear about Sheffield. Anywho, eventually it comes around to Ryan finding the alien onion in the woods and touching what looked to be a holographic button just before it arrived, possibly bringing it to Earth, which was not a good idea. So, while they investigate, they find the onion is gone. Turns out some guy named Raoul brought it to the town and is setting up some sort of surveillance to examine the thing. Of course, he doesn't have to break out the buzzsaw or anything, because it basically hatches. And a guy that looks like he should be fighting the Power Rangers, Green Ranger style, he steps out and gets immediately interrogated by Raoul, demanding to know what happened to his sister. And as the poor guy gets evidently killed off screen, the guy callously declares, "You'll never know." And yeah, he gets brutally taken out, and we later find out that one of his teeth was ripped out. That's adding insult to fatal injury. At first I thought, he was making sure the guy was dead, breaking his neck, but nope, that was a tooth removal. Eventually, thanks to the doctor rigging up Ryan's phone to try and track where the onion went, after discovering they've all been implanted with miniature bombs, so there's a ticking clock. They eventually track the onion to its location, only to discover the alien in really good-looking black armor, killing someone else who really didn't deserve killing. He was just a drunk who was casually tossing salad bits at the guy. He was a jerk, but he didn't deserve that. Anyway, we then find out that his species is something of a warrior race, and he's trying to become the leader of his species by successfully capturing a designated human, which apparently is what happened to Raoul's sister. And we find out two things. Well, three things. Number one, the guy's species doesn't need weapons because his body is naturally so cold it flash freezes someone instantly. Well, at least their head. So basically it's killer frostbite. Number two, the teeth are actually trophies of successful kills. And he's basically grafted them onto his face. He's basically a tooth face. Very nasty looking. Finally, his intended target, located thanks to the spaghetti monster, which is actually a biomechanical computer, which he's not supposed to have. It's against the rules of the hunt. Turns out the schlub from before is the marked human. So everybody converges on the guy's workplace. He runs a construction crane and they try to save him. But not before the doctor, realizing that she needs a new sonic screwdriver, although she later calls it a sonic Swiss Army knife without the blade because apparently only idiots carry blades. Thanks a lot, Doc. Ouch. Anyway, she uses a bit of the alien's own technology, plus a bit of Earth junk, to construct a new screwdriver, which honestly looked kind of weird to me, but once I saw it in action, it was less lame, in my humble opinion. Anyway, she goes up to the top of the crane and tries to get the schlub to exit his vehicle and jump to an adjacent crane where the doctor currently is. And unfortunately, the jump fails and Toothface gets the guy. And he's preparing to leave, only the doctor stole his quick return teleporter. Furthermore, the bombs in Team TARDIS's necks, she actually took them out and put them in the spaghetti monster, while the spaghetti monster was briefly stunned earlier. So when the alien, Toothface, drained the necessary information to get the schlub, he absorbed the bombs as well, or at least the energy of the bombs. So, as it turns out, that was the long game the Doctor was playing. Yeah, she appealed to his potential better nature, and when he proudly declared that he had none and activated the bombs, he basically shot himself in the foot. So, while Toothface is critically injured, the Doctor puts the return pad on his chest, and the schlub unceremoniously kicks him off the crane, and in midair, the guy teleports. Whether or not he dies, we don't know. But we do know this. The spaghetti monster apparently was programmed to be loyal to Toothface, and in order to try and stop the Doctor, it was trying to destroy the crane on which he was located. So, after Graham and Grace managed to flim-flam their way into getting everyone who was at the site away safely, Grace decided to have Graham help her rig up another electro-stun baton like they used earlier. Only this time, when the bombs went off, the creature had a bit of a power surge, and poor Grace caught the full blast of it, and it killed her. So, yeah. And it's sad. There's a tearful goodbye between Graham and Grace. She slips away peacefully. They have her funeral, and Graham is just stunned. But there's no time for tears yet, because number one, the Doctor needs a new outfit, and number two, the Doctor needs to find the TARDIS. So Yaz takes her shopping, because it's been a while since she's needed women's clothes. She's not exactly a master of disguise anymore, so there's that. No dressing up as a Romani lady or a maid. Yes, those actually happened. After the Doctor gets her new outfit, she uses some of the technology left over from Toothface's pod in order to whip up a transmat in order to teleport to the TARDIS's supposed location. And it technically works. She and the rest of Team TARDIS end up getting beamed to where the TARDIS supposedly is. Only they're in deep space. Yeah, they nearly suffocate. Luckily, a pair of racing space cowboys, well, cowboy and cowgirl, pick them up, thus separating the group, the Doctor and one companion in one ship, and the other two companions in the other ship. Turns out they're racing to a planet called Desolation. And oh boy, it is definitely not a friendly place. First off, both ships run out of fuel as they land. The space cowgirl manages to land in one piece, whereas the space cowboy, who's kind of a jerk, but only because he was abused by his mom. Yeah, one time she told him to jump from a tall height, only to intentionally miss him. And it was a lesson in not trusting people, which actually happened to this one oil tycoon. Go look up overly sarcastic productions, Teddy Roosevelt, Trust Buster. And the story is there. It's very disturbing. Anyway, a similar thing happened to this guy, and it made him a jerk. Meanwhile, the girl, she wants to free her family from the clutches of an evil group of conquerors, whom we later find out is the same species as Toothface. Because they're both racing to claim trillions of units of currency. Not sure what the exchange rate is, but it's apparently enough to set either of them up for life. So anyway, the space cowboy ends up crashing and nearly killing half of Team TARDIS. Furthermore, they're told by a hologram of the guy who's running the whole thing that only one of them will be teleported away safely, and everyone else will be left to rot. Also, it's his last hurrah, so he's going out with a bang, basically. He's pulled out all the stops. The only catch is no killing each other, no sabotaging each other, no cheating. Luckily, all of Team TARDIS is safe, and both space racers are equally safe. And so they make their way across the planet, having to avoid flesh-eating parasitic water and killer robots inside the ruins of what looks to be a mall. Turns out it was some sort of scientific facility. The people there were forced by Toothface's people to create weapons. And they did. But eventually they put a stop to it at the cost of their own lives. Eventually, the group comes across what can only be described as sentient rags. Basically, bits of cloth-looking stuff that flutters under its own power and can fly and talk, well, telepathically communicate. And strangle someone alive. Luckily, the confrontation between these creatures and Team TARDIS and the space racers takes place in an area rich with acetylene, which, as it turns out, smells like garlic. I did not know that. But then again, I've never been close enough to an acetylene torch to verify. Anyway, while the sentient rags are taunting the group, one of them mentions the timeless child when it reads the doctor's mind. File that little nugget away for later. Luckily, everyone is able to survive thanks to the cowboy's self-lighting cigar, which is thrown up into the air, lit, and all the creatures are destroyed. Eventually, everyone makes it to the top of something called a ghost monument, which turns out to be the partially phasing TARDIS. And the jerk space cowboy has realized that maybe you can trust some people, and agrees to split the winnings equally with the space cowgirl, because thanks to the both of them working together in various forms, they both made it. But the guy running the race decides to be an oily knob and nullify the contest period. thus stranding everybody. Of course, our racers don't take kindly to being snubbed like that, so thanks to some thinly veiled threats, the oily knob decides to be magnanimous. Whoopie-dee-doo. Unfortunately, he's not magnanimous enough to teleport everyone, just the winners. Luckily, the Doctor is able to use her sonic screwdriver to stabilize the TARDIS, which has reconfigured itself once again. The inside is dark with orange lights this time. Sort of a grungy metal frame look on the inside with crystals making up the center console. At first, I didn't care for it. I preferred 12's TARDIS, the lived-in version that was first created by 11. But honestly, I don't mind 13's TARDIS's design that much now. I've been able to process it a bit, and I thought it was okay. I still prefer 12's, but 13's has grown on me. And so they head off to another adventure. This time, well, actually, first they want to touch base at home. So the Doctor insists that she get them home first. But not before a date with Destiny. They meet Rosa Parks, of all people. This story starts in 1943 when Rosa angers a bus driver by getting on the bus using the whites only door. See, there were two doors on a bus back then, but they were whites only and blacks only. And getting on the wrong door just made this bus driver really have a stick up his butt. And it almost looked like he was armed. Seriously, what? A bus driver with a gun? Good grief. And the worst part is, he didn't have to be such a jerk. He chose to be an oily knob. And yes, I'm going to use that term very often, because it's similar enough to a bit of profanity, which I refuse to use. Anyway, because poor Rosa, by the guy's reckoning, gave him lip, when she gets off a bus to get onto the blacks only door, he seals the bus and drives away. Now, I don't know if that happened in real life. I know that there was another incident earlier in her life when she heard about another black woman who wanted to take a stand, metaphorically speaking, by sitting down. And that's where she was inspired to do this, or do her date with Destiny. But I don't know if the incident I described with the door actually happened. Anyway, 12 years later, Team TARDIS shows up, and because they're getting closer to home, they decide to take a break, stretch their legs, check out 1955. They're, I think, at the wrong point in time to meet Doc Brown and Marty McFly, and they're nowhere near California. So, no chance of a crossover. But we do get full frontal 1955 history. It starts with Ryan picking up a glove that a lady dropped, a white lady to be precise, and tries to hand it back to her, only to be smacked by the lady's husband for the impertinence of trying to be polite. And things almost get ugly. Thankfully, Rosa steps in and placates the pig. That's the least I can call him, by the way, who should have kept his hands to himself. And the guy is a little thunderstruck that Graham and Ryan are related, and there's even an indication that he thinks Yaz is a Mexican. Thankfully, Rosa calms things down and suggests that Team TARDIS get the duck out of Fudge. Meanwhile, some guy who looks like a greaser, like Fonzie, examines the TARDIS and uses gadgets on it. Actual gadgets that couldn't possibly be from this time. I'll file that away for later. Back with Team TARDIS, the Doctor decides to stick around because she's picking up Artron energy coming from Rosa. So they have to figure out what's going on. But not before they get politely but firmly asked to leave eating establishment, because two white people are associating with a black guy and perceived Mexican woman. So basically, poor Ryan and Yaz have a bit of a hard time in 1955, which is weird because this really only happened once in Victorian times with 12 and Bill. That jerk the Doctor punched. That's the only time something like this happened before. But eventually, the Doctor tracks down some of the Artron energy to an abandoned area in order to distract Team TARDIS from the reality of what's going on, and finds a stash of gear left by the greaser. Only he's not a greaser. He's an ex-con who managed to get rehabilitated only to slip back into his old life in a bad way. See, this guy got 2,000 people killed, and for some reason he gets it into his head that if he can disrupt Rosa Parks' date with Destiny, then things will be better for him. And it's later revealed that he really is kind of a racist, thinking black folks should be in their place. And I don't want to get into what that place is, because he is not worth it. The doctor manages to quickly relieve him of most of his gear, even smashing his vortex manipulator. And we find out that he's got an implant which prevents him from harming people. So at least he's not truly violent. So basically it's a race to protect Rosa's date with Destiny. And unfortunately, Team TARDIS gets the attention of the local police, who does an illegal search of the motel that the team is forced to crash at, and gently but firmly tells the Doctor and Graham, who pose as salespeople pushing smartphones. Graham actually calls himself Steve Jobs. The cop tells them they should probably leave as soon as their business is concluded. And seriously, how can one measly little town be so full of hatred? Not just for blacks and browns, but for whites who apparently don't toe the line. It's so disgustingly Dalek-like. But best not to dwell on it, because the greaser manages to wreck the bus that was supposed to be used and trick the bus driver, the same one from 43, into going on a fishing trip. So Team TARDIS has to undo all of that, and eventually they end up on the very bus that Rosa is supposed to make her sitting stand on. And they find out that if Team TARDIS gets off the bus, that Rosa won't need to move her seat. Yeah, Team TARDIS has to just sit there and not do anything while the jerk of a bus driver, who I really, really, really wanted to hit, tries to order Rosa off the bus, and she refuses, taking a stand while sitting down. So she's arrested, and history is successfully written. Oh, but before then, Ryan manages to get Rosa to invite him to a little meeting between her and a couple other enlightened individuals. Rosa's, I think, white husband and Martin Luther King. Yes, that Martin Luther King. Ryan gets to shake hands with one of the greatest men in history. And he gets a bit of a morale boost when he talks to Rosa about how things can be better if you're willing to fight for it. And so he goes to confront the greaser and use the greaser's last remaining device, which the Doctor had captured earlier, to force the greaser back in time, as far back as the device will allow. Not killing him, but ensuring that he's trapped where he can't hurt anyone, even if he could hurt someone. And so the doctor shows what happens to Rosa in the future. In 1999, she gets a commendation by President Clinton and lives out her life as she always has. A fighter for a good cause. Salute. After that, the doctor manages to get everyone home, but things just aren't quite the same. Yaz feels that her home life is just a bit too mundane. Ryan doesn't really feel like continuing his work as a I think it was some kind of dock worker. Basically, he's doing junk work until he can get enough money to pay for mechanic school. He really wants to be a mechanic. And Graham, he's haunted by his late wife's ghost. That big house just feels so empty now. And he realizes something. He needs time to heal. And Yaz and Ryan, they just really don't feel like giving up the ride. So they form a new Team TARDIS properly. And together they throw the switch and send the TARDIS to who knows where. Well, it seems they've ended up a little closer to home than they all realize. They're still in the present. And I just realized something. I sort of spoiled things just now. It's after this episode where they decide they want to keep traveling. Well, anyway, they do manage to get home, but find that Yaz's mom, who's just been fired from her job before she even has a chance to do the job, because her boss is a git and a bully, and basically a copy of Donald Trump, which is laughable because the character hates the guy. Even though he's basically the same guy. A businessman who is unscrupulous and wants to be president one day, and treats his underlings like he should be literally walking on them. It seems that due to his company's policy of buying up old places with space underneath, turning the space underneath into landfill, and then building luxury estates on them, that's had unforeseen consequences. Now, if he just stuck to having them dump stuff that would create methane and then collecting the methane to use as cheap fuel for running the buildings, then that would have been fairly economical. Keep the buildings mostly off the grid, keep prices down, keep satisfaction high. That actually could work. They're actually doing that, collecting methane from landfills in order to utilize the gas in a clean way. But no, there's a whole bunch of nasty stuff in that landfill, which used to be a coal mine, and something is alive down there. It seems a research company looking to utilize spiders mainly for their silk and studying their strength. They threw a half-dead spider down there, and it mutated. It grew to an abnormal size, and it reproduced, spreading its young to wherever they could smell certain pheromones, like the kind that scientists from the spider lab got covered in. Who also happened to live in Yaz's family apartment. Yeah. So, it's up to Team TARDIS to figure out how to deal with these spiders without killing them. Because even though most of us would just say, bring out the flamethrower, the Doctor insists on keeping them alive. Luckily, the discount Trump had built a panic room into his newest building, which also happened to be the nest of the spiders, where Team TARDIS gets trapped after discovering the grisly remains of an errant spider's latest victim. The Doctor insists that the small and medium spiders get locked inside this guy's panic room, which again was built into the luxury estate. 6 months worth of supplies for one human, which the spiders would probably consume quickly, and this would allow them to die out naturally. Although quick death via flamethrower would be a slow death via starvation after the supplies run out, I don't know. Meanwhile, the first spider to mutate has now grown so big it can't breathe properly in the current atmosphere. So while the Doctor tries to comfort it and talk to it like it was one of the sentient spiders from Metabilis 3, the discount Trump guy just strolls up with a handgun that he found off of the remains of his former bodyguard and shoots the poor thing. Surprisingly, it was easy to kill. Now, I would think a big spider like that would need a whole lot of bullets, but nope. One shot was all it took. And the guy ends up surviving. Yeah, sometimes bad people die in bed. And it's after the whole debacle with the spiders that everyone feels like going back to their old lives is just not quite for them right now. And then they head off to a new adventure. They end up on a junk world looking for parts. Why? Because the Doctor is the Doctor. She always needs parts. Unfortunately, they come across a sonic mine, which blows up and thankfully doesn't kill them, but severely injures them. Luckily, they end up on a medical ship bound for a planet where they can get properly looked at. They've been stabilized, although the doctor is still injured and has trouble walking around for a while. I guess she was out of regeneration energy by that point. After all, she only remembered her name when she was confronting Toothface. But anyway, she's worried that scavengers will strip the TARDIS. Unless, of course, she remembered to put up the force field, which she probably didn't. So, she rashly and kind of bullishly tries to take control of the medical ship, which is on autopilot. And she realizes that, the head medic makes her realize that the other people on board the ship do need to get to that planet post-haste. We got a lady who's suffering from an adrenal problem, a guy who's about to give birth. Apparently his species gives birth with men giving birth to boys and women giving birth to girls, and it only takes about a week. At least it does for the men. And like I said, these people need to get to the medical facilities on the planet where they're headed. So the doctor relents. Unfortunately, someone begs to differ. A small creature that eats energy infiltrates the ship and starts wrecking it, firing off the escape pods, one of which contains the head medic, which blows up shortly after, leaving the secondary medic, who is a little inexperienced. Luckily, the doctor helps her rally and keep it together for the sake of the patients. So Team TARDIS is sort of split up into mini teams, with Graham and Ryan acting as midwives for the pregnant guy, who actually doesn't want to be a dad yet, which kind of throws Ryan for a loop, as his dad was never there for him, even when his mom passed, to say nothing of his grandma. Meanwhile, the doctor and Yaz try to figure out how to capture the creature before it basically kills the ship and its passengers. While the lady with the adrenal problem, who's basically addicted to adrenal suppressors now because her heart can't take any strain, turns out she's a general and a pilot, and it's actually up to her to help get the ship to the planet, because what the creature is doing causes the ship's defense system to start working, which could blow the ship up and kill them all. Unfortunately, before she has a chance to get the ship to land safely, she dies, leaving her brother, who didn't know about her condition until it was too late. He manages to take the ship in safely, and the pregnant guy gives birth safely, and the creature is fed the failsafe explosive in order to sate its energy hunger, and successfully gets blown out into space, which it can survive. But yeah, like I said, there's a cost. The lady, the head medic, the lady's android, which, having lost his primary motivation for existence, simply shuts down in a bittersweet moment. But for the most part, the day is saved. Thanks to Team TARDIS, the heroic general, and her brother, who, despite just being a mechanic, was able to step up and be like his sister. After that, Team TARDIS heads home to celebrate the birthday of Yaz's grandma. Excuse me. The first woman married in Pakistan. Like literally, the country was formed like a few hours earlier, and she gets married on Pakistani soil, right as they were drawing the line. And for some reason, the grandma keeps things close to the vest. She has pictures and a broken watch that she insists not be fixed. And she's so secretive for some reason. So Yaz, being the curious sort, asks the doctor to take her back to when her grandma was Yaz's age to find out more about her. Now, the doctor is hesitant because this could be another Rose time bat incident, but the doctor eventually gets convinced and takes them all back to the area that will soon be known as Pakistan. And they hitch a ride with a guy going to Yaz's future grandma's house. And we meet the grandma and Yaz's great-grandma. But we also find out that the guy they got a lift from is Yaz's fiancé. And yet, he's not the face in some of those pictures. He's someone else. He's also sporting a watch that looks like the one that's going to get broke. And there's a mystery. They had sent for this holy man to bless the marriage, because turns out this guy, who's not Yaz's grandpa, is marrying Yaz's grandma. And so, they're pulling out all the stops. Unfortunately, there's a slight snag. These two bat-faced creatures with huge teeth, whom Yaz's great-grandma calls demons, teleport in, and seemingly they killed the holy man, putting some sort of purple dust on him. Just like what happened with Yaz's not grandpa's older brother during the war. which both men fought in. So there's basically a murder mystery going on. Eventually, the doctor manages to make contact with the aliens, because they in fact are aliens, whose species specialize in being assassins. Wow. And she finds out that they're no longer assassins. They retired. They have a greater purpose now. Seems that when they were done killing folk, they returned home to a planet that was nothing but dust. Purple dust. So they decide that they're now going to be witnesses. Anyone who dies alone, they come by, put a little bit of dust on the dead person's forehead, say a prayer. They do for total strangers what could not be done for their own species. And it turns out they can monitor people's futures to find out who's going to die. And yeah, Yaz's not grandpa is destined to die. And not only that, he's destined to die in a horrible way. So, in order to make Grandma happy and ensure history unfolds the proper way, they quickly have a marriage ceremony with the doctor officiating. Grandma stands on Pakistani soil, like right next to the border, and they have their marriage. Earlier, not Grandpa wanted to give his new wife a special gift, the watch, only he dropped it. And she insists that it's a good thing, that this perfect moment is suspended in time. That's why the watch can never be fixed. It's special. And then, basically right after the wedding, not sure if there was a honeymoon, but definitely right after the wedding, not Grandpa's brother, who was too young to fight in the war, and was taken in by all the anti-Muslim rhetoric that was being spouted off, which led to Pakistan being purposefully split off of India as the British pulled out. And he reveals that he was not buddy-buddy with his Muslim neighbors for positive reasons. He kept the land near him alive for his brothers and felt betrayed that a Hindu guy was marrying a Muslim woman. So yeah, once again, racism. Well, more like religious intolerance. And he even betrays them. He calls a group of anti-Muslim radicals, anti-Muslim radicals, to cleanse the land, much in the way the Space Cowgirls' home was forcibly cleansed by outside invaders. Once again, humanity's inhumanity. That's a horrible thing. So yeah, the not grandpa makes one final effort to talk his brother down, even at gunpoint. And just as the had done for the dead brother and the holy man, who was in fact killed by the anti-Muslim brother with the not grandpa's own rifle. They bear witness, so Team TARDIS doesn't have to. And in order to keep Yaz's history intact, they have to walk away while a good man dies, drowned by reckless hatred. It's really brutal. Now, I'm not sure if, like I said, if not Grandpa actually got Grandma pregnant that night, but we do know that at one point, young Grandma was pointing to a map saying, "This is where I'm going," and it was Sheffield, the family's future home. And she may have met someone and then gotten pregnant, but it's a little hard to comprehend. And so Yaz comes to understand her family history just a little better. It's painful, but worth knowing. And I think this is a good place to stop. When next we meet the Doctor, things get really serious. Until then, this is Mr. J signing out and reminding you, self-made sonic screwdrivers are cool, and never judge a book by its cover, because demons can turn out to be angels, and little brothers can turn out to be monsters. Not this little brother, but some. Cheers, folks.